right, this training session is for the use of the admins on the Chromalox and Sightly account. And so we're going to be going through some of those system settings today. And to get to those system settings, the first thing that I want you to do is on your Insightly account, if you'll go and click on where this picture is in the upper right-hand corner, click on that picture and go down to where it says System Settings. If you're not seeing the System Settings icon, then you are not currently set up to be an administrator on the account. Only system administrators will be able to see those system settings and edit those. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on the System Settings, and it will take you to this new menu here. And in this menu, we're going to be going through the majority of the fields on the side. As we go through some of these different system settings that you could edit, I will refer to some of them that are more complex and too intricate for the purpose of this training. I will refer to some links that I've sent out to Janet that you can view for webinars on Insightly that will go over some of these in much more detail than we have time to cover today. So be aware of that we will go over some of these briefly and mention those training videos. I want to start out with you today by looking at the users. So if everyone will click on the user settings here, this is where you can go in and see all of the different users that you have in Insightly. And if you notice, some of them have these little green shields next to their names. That means that that person is an administrator and would be able to come in and edit the system. Okay, if you see the little down arrow, that means that this person has the ability to export contact information and opportunities and those kind of things. They can export data from Insightly. If you wanted to revoke those permissions, you can just click on that button and it will disappear, which means this person would no longer have download privileges, and then you can click it again to make it reappear. I want to go through first today and show you how to set up a new user. So if everyone will click where it says Add New User, okay, and in here we would enter in a first name and a last name. Right now let's just put in sample. Okay, and then I'm going to put in an email address, sample@chromalox.com. And then you would just click Add New User. Okay. What will happen from this point is that email will be, there will be an email that will be sent to that user that will let them know that they have been invited to join Insightly. When they click on that, it will ask them to set up their own password and give them their login information and get them started. Okay. Then if we scroll down here, let me find that sample one that I just created. I'm going to refresh my screen here so that I can see that. Okay, so here's the sample person. You can see that they've never logged into the system. But the next thing you'd want to do as you're looking at a new user that's been added, so if everyone will click on this sample that I just created, okay, and click on where it says More Actions. Oh, and I guess they have to sign in first. Let me make sure. Okay. So on here, if you drill into their record, next you're going to be able to come down and see what their basic permissions are. So this will be able to say that what records they can read, edit, create, and delete. And so if you wanted to revoke some of these permissions, you can just, we'll have to go through on the back end. I'll show you where you can go in and adjust those permissions. But this will give you an overview about what their needs are. Once somebody has actually logged into the system, I'm going to show you what you would want to do next. So once sample had actually gone in and set up their username and password, then the next thing you'd want to do is to drill into their record, okay, and click Edit User. So if everyone can do this here on Adam's record with me, so drill in and then click Edit User. And then what we're going to do next is look at their role and their profile. This has to do with the permissions and the records that they're allowed to see. So the role in Insightly has to deal with their hierarchy of viewing records. So for example, a supervisor would be able to see the records of everyone that they supervise. And so that has to do with, the role has to do with, again, with their hierarchy of what records they can view. The next section down has to do with the profile is the next thing that you would select. And the profile has to do with what records they can they can edit and create and delete, kind of that form that we saw previously. Okay, so those are the two main records. Both of those have to do with what we call Insightly permissions, and that is quite an in-depth process. So if you have more questions on the permissions, there's a great webinar that I provided a link to Janet that the Insightly goes over how to adjust those permission settings. But once again, the process for adding a new user is that you would come in and click on the user settings here in Insightly right here, click on the user settings, then you'd add a new user and add in their name and email address. It'll then send them an invitation. Once they've logged in, then you can go in and edit their permissions with the roles in their profile that apply to them. Okay, so those are the steps that you would take every time you go in to add in a new user. The next section down that you'll see in Insightly is the permission section. And as you scroll down here, you can see this is what it looks like for the permissions. And again, this is a very in-depth process, so I recommend watching that training video if you're going to be dealing with the permissions, watching that Insightly webinar. The next section down that we're going to look at today is the categories. So if everyone can click on categories along with me here. And in the categories section, you'll see that we have kind of a sub-menu. And so categories can appear for opportunities, for projects, for files, or for tasks. And so you can create one category and then have it apply to multiple sections or to just one section at a time. And sometimes it's helpful to see where these categories would actually be appearing within your system. So let me back out a little bit and show you how these apply especially to opportunities. So let's go back and click on opportunities. Okay. And notice how this is where those categories appear. So this is heat trace and the distribution gas process. All of these are different categories. And so in order to get those categories to set up, if you wanted to edit those or add new ones or change them, you would do that in the system settings. Okay. So let's go back to system settings and I'll show you how to edit those. So come to system settings. Okay, and then we're going to click on categories. All right, so if you wanted to edit any one of these, you can just simply click the edit button and then you could adjust the name or the color of how it displays. So you can select from a myriad of colors there. And then you can also select which type of records it applies to. So that's how you can edit those. At the very bottom, this is where you could add in a new category. So you just simply type it in, select what color you want it to be, and then check the boxes for which record types you would like that category to apply to. Once you have that customized, you would just click Add Category, and it would be added to your system. If there's ever a time that you want to delete any of these records, like this one, for example, is just a sample and has no name on it, then you can just click the trash can. If you notice some of them don't have a trash can that's highlighted, so you're not able to delete it out right now. The reason for that is that this category is currently in use. So if you wanted to be able to delete it out, you'd have to change the category on any of the records that contain this category before you could delete it.
Has joined the conference.
Okay, so that takes us through categories. The next thing I want to talk to you about is opportunity states. So opportunity states is what you're marking when an opportunity is marked as won or lost. It will then give you an option to say the reason why that opportunity was won or lost. So over here, these are your options for what kind of your main state that you can choose, a lost or abandoned, suspended, or won. But within those, you can select different reasons. So you can edit those again by clicking the little edit button, or you can add new ones. If you, I want everyone to click on this as well with me so you can see kind of how this would work. But if you wanted to add in a new reason, then you would say, okay, does this reason apply to if the opportunity was lost, for example, and then you could type in a reason here and then just click add reason. Okay. All right, let's move down this menu here on the left and talk about opportunity field mapping. What field mapping is used for is that if you had a custom field that was entered in the opportunity section, and you wanted that same custom field to move over to a project when the opportunity was converted to a project, then here's where you would select how those custom fields would map to the custom fields in the project. Now, right now, we don't really, we're not using projects, so we don't have any of these mapped for you. Okay, but in the future, if you did want to map these, what you would do is you would come and look at, so this is the custom field that's listed in the opportunity. And then here in the project is where you would be able to see all of the custom fields that were in the project. And you can map that data so that it will transfer over as you convert the project. Okay, the next section down that we're going to look at is your lead status. So in here we have several different lead statuses. This little menu bar on the left arranges the order of how they're appearing when it shows up in your leads. For the lead status, this will be the order that they'll appear in. This little dot here means that this is the default status, that it comes in as not contacted. You can edit any of these by clicking the edit button, or you can add in a new status by entering in what you want to appear and then selecting if this would be applicable for an open lead or for a closed lead, and then click add status. So fairly simple there. The next section down goes over the lead sources. So how are these leads coming to you? And you can do very similar here to the lead statuses, but you can edit any of them or add new sources fairly easily here. Okay, the next one that I really want to go over with you is your custom fields. So we're going to go over that one in more detail, but I want to briefly skim over some of these so you know what those are for. The web to lead form is providing HTML so that if somebody were to enter in information on the website, it would come directly into Insightly and be saved. We don't have that enabled at this time, but if you did want to enable it, you could click this button and then you can create some HTML for your site. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and disable that for now. The lead field mapping is similar to the opportunity field mapping, where essentially we're looking at all the custom fields that would be in the lead section and then mapping to where those would go when that lead was converted to an opportunity. The lead assignment rules, again, if you guys ever get to a point where you're using leads in a large format and you want to be able to determine who gets which or gets responsibility over which lead, that's where you would do that here as in lead assignment rules. So here you can do things such as saying if somebody comes in from California, then they would be assigned to a certain sales rep to follow up with. That all happens here in the lead assignment rules. And there's a great video on that on Insightly that can give you some more information. Workflow processes is also a very in-depth training. This is something that I provided a link for to a webinar on Insightly, but this is where all of the automations can happen. So things like if an opportunity has not been updated for 14 days, somebody would get an email to remind them to follow up with that person. It's those type of things that are possible here in the workflow section. Okay. Next is relationships. This is not one that we currently are using much of, but this is when you are linking records together. You can say how they're related. So for example, you can say this company is a parent company of another company. Okay, so that's possible in the relationship section. And if you wanted to customize those relationships, you can do that by adding in a new relationship. Okay. All right. Pipelines and activity sets. Pipelines, this is where you can see the combined process pipeline we've been working on, and you can edit those stages. But this will show you what we have here as far as the different stages. If you wanted to add a probability to those stages, you could do that by clicking on the pencil here and then adding in a probability number. If you notice, it also gives you an opportunity to select an activity set. Now, adding activity sets is something, again, that I provided a link to on Insightly's training for activity sets. But activity sets are essentially a series of tasks. So if when an opportunity was in the lead stage, if there was a series of tasks that needed to happen while that person was in lead stage, then you could create what's called an activity set and apply it to that particular stage of the pipeline, and it will automate a bunch of tasks to come out and be assigned to different people depending on which stage of the pipeline they're on. Okay, so that's what activity sets are. Again, there's another training link on how to look at those activity sets. Okay, this is where the next section down is where you would actually customize those activity sets. Okay, this is where they would be created at. Again, I'll refer you to that other video for those. Okay, one that you will most likely be adjusting, or a lot of people adjust more often here within the system settings, is the custom fields. So here in the custom fields, we have several that have been created for you. There's a few things I wanted to point out for you. I think it's helpful to know where the custom fields show up on the record. So I'm going to show you here in Opportunities. If you'll click on Opportunities with me and click on New Opportunity. As we scroll down, you're going to see these custom fields for opportunities. So these are all custom fields. There are different headings. So this one just says custom fields for opportunities. But here where it says project details, this is also all custom fields. And also where it says quote information, all of this is custom fields as well as the booking information. So all of these sections are specific to Chromalox, and those have all been added in as custom fields. So I'm going to show you how to edit those and add new header sections if you wanted to do that as well. So again, to get to system settings, let's click on the picture here, on your picture, and go to system settings. Okay, when you are here in system settings, we're going to scroll down to custom fields. Okay, and here in custom fields, please notice that there is a submenu. This will show you the custom fields for contacts, for organizations, for opportunities, for projects, and for leads. So that's where you can edit those. Let's look first at the opportunities. If you notice, this gray bar here is showing you those headers that were appearing in the opportunities. Okay, and those are called groups. If you wanted to add a new group, you would do that here. Okay, and then you can rearrange how these are displayed by dragging and dropping there. You can also move whole groups up and down by clicking the up and down arrows. Okay, next let's practice what you would do to add a new custom field. I'm going to click Add Field here. The field name label is what you would be calling your custom field, so I'm just going to type in sample. If you wanted a default value to appear, you could enter in a default value here for a text field. But normally what I would do is skip over a few of these and go straight to the field type. This is what you're going to want. These are your different types of fields that you can create for the custom field. So there's a text field, which will give you just one line of text. There's drop-down date field, which will give you a calendar option, a checkbox, numeric fields that will only hold numbers and decimals, a URL field, which will provide a live link on your record, and a multi-line text field, which is more of a paragraph option. Again, for the text field and the multi-line text field and a few of these ones where you type in, you can put in a default value. The help text, if you put in, if it's something that would need more of a description, you can add in a help text and it will appear next to a little question mark. So if you were to hover over it, it would tell you what you would need to do for that help text. A few things to be aware of as you are looking at the field types. I want to go over two of them in particular for you. One is the drop-down field. So if you were creating a new drop-down field here, this little gray button is going to be your default option, and you can select different options of whatever you've typed in here. So you can enter in new ones. If there's fields you don't want, you can hit the little minus button and it will start deleting some of the options here. One thing to be aware of is that it will appear, these drop-down menus will appear in the order in which you type them in. They do not automatically adjust to be alphabetical. So if there is something, if you do want the list to appear alphabetically, make sure that it is entered in alphabetically. Okay, and that will help you with that as well. Okay, another type of field that I wanted to go over with you to be aware of is if you look at the checkbox field. Please make sure if you do add a checkbox field that you make sure that you put in if you want the default to be checked or unchecked. Okay, and that will enter that in. Again, it has help text, and each time you enter in a new custom field, you'll be able to select which group you want it to be connected to. Okay, so if this should fall under the project details group, then you can select that. Okay, so that takes us through custom fields. Again, you can edit any of the custom fields that are here. So if you were to add in new sales territories, for example, you would just click on the edit button, and here you'll see all the different custom fields that are in here for sales territory. And I would make sure that you add a button here in the appropriate section if you were going to add 70000012. You'd want to make sure that it falls in line here. I'm going to go ahead and delete that out so it doesn't mess up the system.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So if I wanted, so I see the territory numbers. If I wanted to put a description of what the territory name is, would I have another custom field for that?
Yes. So if you wanted, because if you were to enter it in here, then it would be, you could have like the territory name and then dash a description.
Well, yeah, but it's a numeric field. So if I wanted to say, like territory 001 was Atlanta, would I have another custom field, and can I relate those two custom fields to one another?
Yeah, you can't actually relate the two custom fields to one another. However, this is currently not a numeric field. It is a drop-down field, so you could do that dash and do a description if you would like to.
All right, so you can't have a field that is numeric and another field that has a description of what its value is in custom fields and relate
No. I guess you could do that through workflows and say every time that this, that this sales territory number is selected, then automatically change this territory description to appear as, California or whatever. You could do that through the workflows, but otherwise you would have to manually select it. It won't. We can't make it automatically display unless we're doing it through workflows. But that's something we can discuss later if you'd like to look at those.
All right. Yeah, I want to hold up the training. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. All right. A couple of other things. Web to contact. This is similar to the web to lead form that I was talking about, where if somebody were to enter in their information on your website, it would be entered here into Insightly as a contact. Here is where you can also look at your opportunity states. This is similar to your lead statuses, where you can say if the opportunity was won or lost or suspended, and then put in the reason for it. Okay. All right, so let's scroll down here. Let's see. Most of these are settings that you'll want to just have defaulted. So things like record ID. Insightly does create a record ID for each individual record. If you wanted that record ID to show, you can check this box. Otherwise, it does have the record ID, but it's just in the background. Lead management is enabled for you. That just means that you are using the lead section. Some people don't, and so they have that disabled. Inline editing allows you to be able to edit as you're looking at a record without having to click the little pencil button to edit that button, to edit a record. Okay, a few other things here for you. So the social profiles are enabled, meaning that if somebody has an email address in Insightly that they also use for a social profile, it will automatically create the link between those so that you could click on it and see their LinkedIn profile or their Facebook or Twitter profile. Okay. Everything else, I think, is just your basic settings here in Insightly. Integrations these are some of the stock integrations that are built in within Insightly. We haven't talked about integrating any of those, but if you did want to integrate with any of these other integrations, that's where you would do that at. Okay, so I know that was kind of a whirlwind going through all of the system settings. Does anyone have any specific questions that I can answer for you?
Can you go back to the users?
Yeah.
Scroll down a little bit. All right, okay. No, I see. I had a question, but just scrolling through it sort of answered it. Thanks.
Oh, okay.
All right, I'm going to jump off. I have to jump on another conference. Thanks.
Does anybody else have any questions that I can go over for you?